There's nothing Gordon can't handle, with the possible exception of you.
Dad, please.
Half-Life 2 was a big hit when it came out in 2004. People praised its graphics, physics, and facial animations. But how does this hold up in the year 2021? First, let's look at the graphics. Obviously, by modern standards, these do look a bit dated. But I think the photorealistic art style holds up well for the most part. Although some sections of the game do look quite rough. Like the coastal sections where you're driving the buggy, and the uprising sections in the ruins of City 17. The physics are still quite fun to play with. Half-Life 2 also features a bunch of physics puzzles scattered throughout the game. We've got seesaws, pulley systems, slippery slopes. I think the facial animations are still pretty decent, although they do seem a little bit exaggerated. And I suppose if you compare them to high-quality modern motion capture, they'll look somewhat dated anyway. But what's here in the game gets the job done quite well, I think. But let's look at the most important part of any game, the gameplay. Much like every single first-person shooter ever released, Half-Life 2 is a game where you shoot things. Half-Life 2's gameplay feels like a simplified version of Half-Life 1's gameplay, though the game does try to spice things up a bit with physics coming into play. The grenades are now affected by the physics engine, so that makes throwing them a lot more intuitive. And zombies can slap objects in your general direction. The game continually throws new gimmicks at the player to try and mix things up a bit, though some of these aren't too great. Like the sections where you're driving the airboat and the buggy, they're quite lengthy and they're not too fun, and the driving isn't very satisfying. The camera shakes all over the place. And we have to control squads of antlions, and then later we also control squads of rebels. The antlions are controlled with the bug bait, which counts as a weapon of sorts, but then once you're done with the antlions it just sits there in your inventory doing nothing. And then the rebels are controlled with a similar system, except this time you press the C key on your keyboard. A lot of the combat encounters against the Combine soldiers do feel very repetitive. It's very rare that they'll actually try to flank you. Most of the time they'll just stand still and shoot at you. And a lot of this takes place in samey looking rooms and tight corridors. It just makes everything feel a bit boring. And this isn't helped by the lack of enemy variety. Half-Life 2's enemy roster lacks a lot of the enemies from Half-Life 1, whilst also not really adding that many new enemies either. The game doesn't even have hound eyes or bull squids. The shark makes a brief cameo, and we do have vortigaunts, but they're now allies instead of enemies. Barnacles do make a return however, as do headcrabs. And we have two new varieties of headcrab, and respective zombies, poison and fast. Antlions, antlion guards, and striders are the only really new enemies in Half-Life 2. There are also manhacks, roller mines and scanners, but they're mostly just mild annoyances who can be easily dealt with by the gravity gun. Gunships can shoot down your rockets, so you have to do this little dance with the laser-guided rockets to successfully land the hits. In most fights against the antlion guards, gunships and striders though, you are just firing rockets at them until they explode. Starting on the coastal levels where you get the rocket launcher, you end up having to shoot down a load of gunships, and every fight is just the same. It's boring. I think the bosses in Half-Life 1 and the solutions to deal with them were a lot more interesting and varied, and also interwoven into the gameplay and story a lot better. Like to kill the Gargantuan power-up you have to turn the electricity on, which you need to do anyway to drive the train. Or to deal with the Gargantuan surface tension you can try and call in an airstrike on it. Or to defeat the tentacles in Blast Pit, you have to travel through that area of the facility to activate the oxygen fuel and power, and then fire the rocket engine. The game has a pretty good atmosphere. There's a good blend of music, environmental sounds, and decent level design in parts that really brings things together. After the G-Man invades our personal space, we get to walk through the oppressed streets of City 17, and we get to see the oppressive regime of the Combine in action. It's a lot like the intro to Half-Life 1, where it's mostly a non-combat section and you get to bother some NPCs. After meeting up with a bunch of friendly characters, Barney, Alex and Dr. Kleiner, we get to have a teleportation mishap. This part is very much like the Resonance Cascade in Half-Life. Black Mesa East is another area with a lot of talking like Kleiner's lab. These kinds of sections are essentially unskippable cutscenes. The dialogue of the NPCs is pretty well written and well acted in these areas, but after the first couple of times you've listened to it, you just want to skip past it really.
Until you're where he wants you, there's nothing you can do.
Well, if it isn't Gordon Freeman at last. What's this? I'll put it over there. You have my gratitude, Doctor. Will you give your child the chance her mother never had?
How dare you even mention her?
Alex, my dear, you have your mother's eyes, but your father's stubborn nature.
Here's a room with 7 bathtubs. The Citadel has a cool atmosphere, but the entire section is bogged down by not just one pod ride, but 2 pod rides. The Ravenholm section of the game puts the gravity gun to the test. It's also got a decently spooky atmosphere, which is nicely contrasted by Father Grigori madly cackling as you battle your way through the horde of zombies and headcrabs.
You've stirred up hell, man after my own heart.
Half-Life 1 had a wide variety of weapons. Human weapons, alien weapons, energy weapons, and a variety of explosives. Half-Life 2 has a much smaller selection of weapons, and a lot of them are basically just the same weapons from Half-Life 1. A lot of the weapons also don't sound or feel too impactful. The Tau cannon from Half-Life 1 makes a return, but it's a shadow of its former self, and it's permanently stuck to the buggy. The AR-2 is the only combine weapon that you can carry. It's a pretty standard weapon to use. I do wish that there were a lot more interesting and varied weapons in the game and not just stuff repeated from Half-Life 1. The gravity gun is quite fun though, but I don't think it makes up for the lack of weapon variety in the rest of the game. In the coastal section is this slow and tedious part with a crane that's very unintuitive to use. Nova Prospect is far too repetitive, and the antlions just get in your way. As do the rebels in the Uprising section in all the tight corridors and ruined apartment buildings. Ultimately, the game feels really unfocused and unpolished. It just jumps from gimmick to gimmick too much. The episodes make much better usage of the gravity gun, and are both a massive improvement over Half-Life 2. The episodes sadly don't add any new weapons, but we do get a few new enemies. Zombines.
A combine zombie? That's like a zombine, right? Zombine, get it? Okay.
Hunters. Antlion workers who are a bit reminiscent of bull squids. And the Antlion Ancient Guardian, who's a sort of a poison variant of the Antlion Guard who you're not meant to kill and you're just being chased around it through these caves. The level design in the episodes is a lot better and also a lot more consistent. And we have a vehicle section that's a lot better than the vehicle sections in Half-Life 2, which I think is because we have Alex as a constant companion. The quality of levels in Half-Life 2 varied quite a lot. Some levels were quite good and others seemed a bit outdated and weird looking. The episodes are quite fun and they're very enjoyable experiences. They really make Half-Life 2 look like a boring slog by comparison.